With Blender, it's very important to know how to undo and redo. So if you have something selected and delete it, you didn't mean to do so, or if you have something edited in a way that you didn't mean to do, you can hold Control and press Z. And if you want to redo it, you can hold Control, hold Shift, and press Z to redo it. That's pretty important in order to fix mistakes that you might make in Blender. Whenever it comes to modeling, some people on roblox may be trying to make UGC or textures, which you can do some of that in a basic form in Blender, but starting out with a simple cube, you can make just about anything really if you form things with simple shapes. So you can select what you don't need by holding and clicking, and then right click delete or pressing the delete button. So I think I'm going to make a book out of this cube. So I'm going to scale it and press Z, press S and then Z. Make it about as thin as a book might be. I'm going to scale it on the y-axis. It might be on the X or y-axis depending on how your camera is rotated. And you can type in a number. I'm going to type in 1.5, so it'll be 1.5 times that size. I think that'll be good. I'm going to hit Control R. After hitting Edit Mode by pressing Tab, I'm going to hit Control R, and I'm going to add 2. So I type in the number 2 for 2 loops. And if you've added too many, you can hit Delete and then type in the number again that you want. So I'm going to have 2. I'm going to press Enter or click, and then you can right click to have it at the center. Now with this selected, there is vertex, edge, and face select mode. And if you hold Alt and then you click basically the edge of the faces that you want to select, you can have them selected. So Alt and then click to select basically a row. Now you can only do this with quads or four-sided shapes. So I'm going to select the middle, scale it on the y-axis, and get that little book indent sort of looking thing. I'm going to Control R and press 2, right click, and then move it down a little bit. I'm going to scale on the y-axis to about how I might like it. And I'm going to click and then shift click these faces here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to snapping, and I'm going to hit vertex. So what this does, you can have it snap to the closest center or wherever. There's different settings here too where you can snap it to, even edge and face and whatnot. But I like vertex because you can snap it to a specific vertex. I'm going to grab by pressing G and then Z. Then I'm only going to hold Control, and that'll have it snap. Since I have Z selected, it'll snap on the Z axis. I'm going to snap it to this by clicking. That'll accept its position. Now I have a basic book, but it's a little bit thick, so I'm going to select all the top faces, grab, and then Z. That's about good. Now with this, I can press I to inset the faces. Now I can use this to make the pages. So I'm going to move it to about where I might like it. And you can even type numbers, which I'm not really going to do. I'm just going to eyeball it, and you can right click to cancel. But I'm going to press I again and get it to about how I might like it. Then I'm going to press E to extrude it. And I'm going to make sure that the z-axis is where it's going. And then I'm going to click to have it set there. Now, I'm going to click this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. Right click and subdivide. Now that'll add a line just along those edges, thankfully, because these are four-sided shapes. I'm going to select the top one, grab it and put Z, get it to about where I might like it. And I'm going to make these edges go down, maybe, and these edges go down. You can select multiple with Shift and click. You can also Control and click to select more. And again, Alt and click to select a row, sort of. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit to however I might like it. Maybe a bit more outward. And, well, I basically have the book model, but it has hard edges on it. So I'm going to right click and hit Shade Auto Smooth. Then I'm going to go to modifiers here and type in 180. And that is the maximum amount that it can be set to. Then in edit mode, I'm going to select all of this. You can do it manually one by one, or you can hold Alt and click, and then it'll select, a row. And you can have all that selected. And once you have all that selected, you can go to Edge and hit Mark Sharp. Now that's going to make that edge, all that you had selected, blue. So that means it is sharp. And it will appear not like super smooth like how this is. And I'm going to do that again for these. So you can do it one by one if you're not comfortable using Alt and click. I'm holding Alt and Shift. So I'm selecting more and having that row selected. I'm basically gonna make these pages look good. And then edge and mark sharp. So now I have it about good, except I missed the middle one. There we go. Now that's looking a lot more like a fairly alright book. I'm just missing a few more for the book cover. So I'm going to have all those selected. Edges. And then edge and mark sharp. So now I have a pretty alright book. It can definitely be adjusted a little bit more just to make it look a little bit better. But for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to adjust it too much. But, oh, I can also add a little bit of detail by marking these sharp so it actually looks like it's like has a crevice there. So I have a basic book that I can work from, and I can even UV unwrap it, and there's also texture painting. So UV unwrapping is a little bit scary for some people, but if you know what to do and how to unwrap it, then you can probably do a fairly good job. If you press A, it will have everything selected here. But if you click off of it, it'll click or not show it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select pretty much just about what I had sharp except for this part here. So I'm going to have the whole pages area separate. So I'm going to want this side being separate. So I'm going to edge and mark seam. And then that will have it separated over here whenever there is a certain setting enabled, I think. But having it unwrapped properly is pretty important so that you can color it properly. So I'm going to do the same for this side, then edge, and then mark seam. And then I'm going to have these selected also, an edge and mark seam. Now if I press A and have everything selected, I can hit UV and unwrap, angle based, I suppose. And now it shows that there is some separation. However, it might not be sized correctly. So, out of edit mode, you can hit or hold Control and press A to apply all transformations. Now in edit mode again, UV, unwrap, and angle based. That should have them scaled appropriately because now you can see some of these faces that I've cut out basically. And with this, you can adjust this drop down menu or whatever. You can adjust the margin. That makes it more separate. So you can put a color here, like a color square here or wherever else. But it's not quite cut properly because this is an absolute mess over here. So I'm going to continue to basically cut it out like unfolding a box, however I might want it. It's like this whole bottom area. I'm going to want it marked, and then I'm going to want this side marked, and basically that all of that marked, an edge, mark seam, and then I can press A, UV, unwrap, angle based, and now it is basically cut out. And you can adjust it to about however you might want it to be. Now, with this, you can start editing the UVs. Now, I don't like that it is rotated that way, so I'm going to select everything, press R and rotate it by 90 degrees, press enter or click, and then I'm going to grab it and move it so it's still within it. If it's too big, you can press S to scale it, but I'm going to have it all moved in place. Now it's important to know what you have selected. There is this UV sync selection, so you can find out what you have selected, and it'll show you what it is there. Now, it's actually the opposite. Wait, no, it's the right way. But if it is the opposite way, then you can just rotate it 180, and then it'll be flipped. So if I was looking this way by default, then I'd be a little bit confused because it's going that way. And I can rotate it 180 and it'll be correct for me so that I can see what I'm doing there. But I'm going to undo that because I'm going to use this as my default view. Now, the main resolution for Roblox with their textures as of February 2025, in case of it changes, it is 1024 by 1024. So you can't really go any higher resolution than that. So I might already have it set to that, but for now, I'm going to continue to make sure that it would work good. So I'm going to move similar UVs. I have face select on right now, so I can move similar UVs close to each other so that I know what is what. I can color them or texture them appropriately. So I'm going to move these about however I might want them to. If your model is very, very detailed, it might be extremely tedious and annoying in order to unwrap everything. There's an automatic unwrap, um, smart UV unwrap, but it can be pretty bad, and it might mess things up. But since we're doing it manually, we have to know what we're looking at, and we can have these separated by what color we want them to be. So I'm going to make sure that everything is pretty much lined up and about how I might like it so that I can texture it appropriately and make sure that the UVs that I want more detail on, I'm going to want them bigger. Like if I'm going to put text on this page, I'm going to want this to be bigger, and the stuff that I don't really care about, I can have a lower resolution texture. I can have them be smaller. And you can put just a basic color over it. But for now, still UV editing. And I don't like how thin that is. I'm going to grab these with Alt and click, or you can manually select them one by one with Shift click. But I'm going to have these selected and scale it. Oh, it has other things selected. Oh, I can turn that off. Press A. I might be able to do it now. Yeah, now I can scale it with the UV sync off. So I'm going to scale this because I want some more detail, but it's very thin. If something's scaled too small or too thin, it might not get much texture on it. But with it being thicker, I can do more stuff with the UVs. Now I'm guessing this is the bottom of the book. So I'm going to have the bottom and the top being like the biggest ones here so that I can have the most texture from them that I can apply. Which is good if you want to add like text on the book, but Roblox doesn't usually like text on things because it triggers their moderation, especially falsely. But for now, I'm not going to use any text. I'm just going to use a basic, or try to make a basic book. So, with it scaled and about how I might want it positioned, this will be like the front page. I'm going to turn UV sync back on so I know what I'm clicking. And face select. So yeah, that's that face, that. So I know that it's positioned correctly at least. And with this, I'm going to want it like this. So let's see. Yeah, that's rotated correctly. And if it's not, you can select everything, rotate it by 180. You can type in 180 and whatnot. And right click to undo if you need to. Some of these are a bit thin, so I'm going to make them larger on the y-axis, but I'm going to want to make sure that there's more than enough space so that the colors and the textures don't overlap. So after I'm done moving everything to about where I want it to be, then I can start working on the texture. And with that, I can hit new and type in book, and this is set to 1024 by 1024 by default for me. So that is Roblox's like default texture right now, their maximum texture for UGC, November 2025 at least. So I'm going to hit new image with that named as book. And now that's going to be pink. So I'm going to go to layout. I'm going to hit material. Then I'm also going to make sure that this one, viewport shading, is enabled, just in case. I don't know if that's necessary. But I'm going to hit this yellow dot under base color and image texture. I'm going to hit the drop down and use a book. Okay, now I have the book texture on the book. Now with this, you can get a color and start painting on it, and it'll be there. which that is a quick and easy way to texture if you want to just do that, and then image, and then save. Where save? If you want to just color it in like this, you can change the color up here and change it to whatever color you want, and then just draw on it. Even you can even adjust the radius of um, your circle here so that you can draw whatever you might want on it. So with that, there is a way to specifically have the certain areas selected. So in edit mode, you can have the paint mask selected, and in edit mode, select all that you might want. You can also press L to have something selected, to link selected. You can go by normal, which will select everything. Material, which will select everything for you. Seam, which will work. And there's also sharp and UVs. So I'm going to have seam selected so I can press L and then have and continue to press L while aiming at the ones I want selected. And there, now I'll have all that selected. Now I can hit tab and then go to the paint bucket. And then I can click, and now it's all that color. Now that's pretty easy to do. I'm going to make it white, though. I'm going to make the book pages white. But one of the issues is it's so thin. It doesn't quite go as far as I would like it to. So because of this, your UGC might have a black line on it instead of it being more full. So what you can do is you can just paint it in really if you want to, or take an outside application and give it more of a thickness there, which that'll help it and help reduce the chances of it having those black lines which can appear. So I'm going to paint that all in as extra, hopefully, safety from those from having the black lines on there, which can happen whenever Roblox is whenever the texture quality is lowered, things kind of merge a little bit. But I have the book. Oh, this isn't in viewport shading. Okay, now I can see it better. Now I'm going to select this part. I'm going to select the bottom of the book and then press L, have whatever I want selected, and then tab out of edit mode, the fill, and get it maybe a brown sort of color to the book, and then click, and that'll fill it there. So now I basically have a super basic texture that I can have, but there's not much detail. Really, what you can do is you can start coloring it in if you are good at 2D art and you're more familiar with paint applications. You can start just painting on it and get a really nice texture, but I'm not really great at that. But you can do that if you want. So what you can do is, there should be a way that I can use the eyedropper, but I forgot where that was. But oh, there it is. There's the eyedropper. So you can use the eyedropper and have the color selected back again from the texture. So thankfully that's very useful if you accidentally changed your color. You can use the eyedropper and use it on whatever color you want. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more of an edge on the areas that I want to. And thankfully all this is gonna be brown. So I can go a little bit crazier on it and then paint that all in. And basically, whenever I get that done, then I can hit image and then save. So you can save your texture. But yeah, I'm just going to continue to paint it in. Yep, there we go. And then paint this area in. Now, unfortunately, I put these two a bit close together, meaning hopefully the brown won't go onto the pages. But I think it has enough distance not to. But if you have that issue, you can just scale the UVs just to be smaller or to be more farther away from each other. So I'm going to continue to texture paint and get it about how I might like it so that there's enough assurance space that that I cannot have those black lines that can appear on the UGC. But you can paint right from Blender without needing a texture application. It's just very, very tedious, especially if you're not good with 2D paint applications. So I'm just going to continue to do that. In fact, I'm just going to move these a little bit more down so that I can have more space there, less issues. I'm going to fill this in too. But yeah, basically that's a very basic texture, but you can get a lot more detailed with like an outside application like Substance Painter 3D. That's one of the ones that I like to use for more realistic textures. You can basically just put it on there and have it segmented into whichever areas you want. But if you don't have that, you can use Blender for some very basic colors like this, which is just white and brown. And you can get a lot more detailed if you want and you're good at painting. But I'm not really great with 2D art. You can hit save and save as, and make sure you have this texture saved, otherwise you won't have it. And save it to wherever you want. And with the model itself, you can hit File, Export as FBX. FBX is what Roblox uses for their models, where you can upload it in Roblox Studio. But yeah, that is a extremely basic tutorial on UV editing and texture paint. Now there is a way to have UVs unwrap in real time, but I forgot where that setting was. But you can basically do it like that, and you can have a super basic textured book or something like that. Yeah, that'll be it. Whenever you do have the texture saved and it is all like set however you may like, I'm using a different texture right now, but you can use an outside application like a paint application. Paint 3D, they're going to stop updating it, but it's one that I really like because it's really simple and you can add text and other such things to your texture. Whenever you know where things are supposed to go, and I like to use the 3D text in Paint 3D because you can double click on it and then adjust it again. While the 2D, you can't really adjust it. But in a paint application of your choice, like Paint 3D or Krita or some other one, you can paint in it after you've had it exported or after you have it saved to a certain place. You can find it in your paint application and draw on it and whatever. Then you can put the texture and check it back in Blender. and see how it looks. So you can use other paint applications for texturing if you want to do it outside of Blender.